over for your ass.
How you digging that cart, man?
Good.
You like that? It's just pretty
Yeah.
dope.
Yeah, it's dope.
This episode of The Green Room is brought to you by Lex Wellness Kentucky. Go to lexwellnessky.com if you are in need of CBD products or maybe a little bit of pre-roll. Whatever your game is, go over, check them out, get you some cool shit. And now we are in the green room. All right, so today's episode is going to be about the entourage effect. Do any of you fine gentlemen know what the entourage effect is?
I
do not.
No, I do not.
No.
I'm not familiar with the term, so let's get the listeners what they want.
All right, so cannabis related, the entourage effect is where all of the cannabinoids within the plant work together for a synergistic effect. The reason why I bring it up is that if you are unaware, everybody is familiar with THC in cannabis as the active ingredient, but there are other types of cannabinoids like CBD, CBG, and many others that play vital roles in the effect of plant as medicine.
Right.
So, in its naturally occurring forms, cannabis usually has different levels of all different types of cannabinoids. But over the past, I don't know, maybe 30 years, since probably maybe around the early 90s, whenever legalization and medical started to really start to become a thing, and people were more focused on breeding certain strains for potency and things like that, it's now gotten to a point to where a lot of stuff that is grown and makes its way to market is basically THC without a bunch of the other cannabinoids.
Right.
So that affects the experience, because THC, if you all are not familiar, on its own, without any other cannabinoids with it, can be panic-inducing, give you anxiety, heart racing, like things like that.
You know, when I was younger, that happened to me.
Yeah.
I had a major panic attack. I had to go to the hospital and everything. It was a panic and an anxiety attack at the same time after smoking.
Well, and
Right.
that's
Oh, God.
actually kind of what's funny with me. What happened is right before me and my wife reconnected.
Right.
I smoked like I usually did, and all of a sudden I just felt an overwhelm of anxiety and a panic attack.
Yeah.
And then because I've always known the difference between indicas, hybrids,
Gotcha.
sativas, and all that, but
Gotcha.
like at when I was younger, I wasn't really worried about that.
Yeah.
And then
Just kind of hits you all of a sudden.
yeah, right.
So does that mean that something was disconnected from that strand?
Well, it's basically kind of like, it seems to me, in my opinion, that with the way that things have gone, as legalization, or at the very least competitive growing, has become more prevalent, it's basically become like a big dick measuring contest. In the beginning, it had relatively low potency. I think you might think around anywhere from 8 to 15%, but nowadays we have 28%, 30%, and people are constantly pushing the boundaries, which is its own thing. But that's kind of my point, is I think a lot of people have focused on THC and therefore let a lot of the other cannabinoids not get a lot of the spotlight, because they see the value being straight THC, but because of its own properties on its own, it can be problematic in certain issues. So that's why I've always kind of been of the opinion that it needs to have at least some, to to some degree a level that has an effect with THC. You see what I'm saying? Because like CBD is more of like a grounding effect.
Right.
So CBD within strain gives you more of a grounding effect whenever you were to use it, as opposed to being kind of like off in your head or, you know, just really overwhelmed.
In La La Land.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To where, like, yeah, that can be panic inducing.
And now you know.
Exactly.
D-Lo.
Feeling good.
For anybody who didn't know before,
That is
you
not
just
the dream.
unlocked an achievement.
Yeah.
But no, it's real talk though.
He said it was locked in.
Because, like everybody, when we were all a bit younger, whatever we smoked on, I mean, you would have some stuff that was like some crazy shit where it's like, yeah, you're gonna smoke it and probably feel like a little.
Actually, over the weekend we had a funny conversation about that.
Yeah.
So I was talking to. We'll keep that confidential.
Okay.
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 But so she said something about how, you know, they was talking about, you know, they went to Jamaica for the honeymoon,
Right.
but they tried to go into the Rastafarian
Right.
part of it. But she's sitting there talking about it. She was like, yeah, we asked for some hydro. And I'm like, hydro, like hydro is a outdated term in this day and age.
Maybe not there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, now it is really kind of, as you could technically probably find it, but with where Jamaica's at, there's only very specific places that probably do it that way. Because I think a lot of them do more like of an organic process.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. If anybody knows out there, feel free to reach and let us know. But
I just thought it was funny because like I haven't heard like the word hydro, especially in America, talk about it in like
oh yeah, that's
years. Like I feel like it was an
a
outdated
vintage
term.
It's
Yeah.
like nowadays,
That's why I say so. Maybe that's what they
accurate.
use over there. That's what they call it over there. Maybe that's one of the strains that they call it over
Well,
there. because
but also
we're
this
behind
person,
in some names, so
this person hasn't like smoked in like years. Like she said, she was talking about years.
yeah,
So
it was her as a person.
Yeah,
saying
it was basically like her in college type stuff.
Yeah, she
So-
does.
they had some hydro.
Yeah.
We're asking if they had hydro.
It-
Do you have any hydro, D-Lo?
yeah.
Yeah, me and my
Um,
girls were trying to
am I
have like a
saying
little
it right?
bonfire in the backyard, and we needed some hydro. Can you call him Mika? Because we know he's got hydro.
Like,
At that, what's that place called that he's always advertising on the podcast?
yeah,
Right, that part.
wellness.
Oh, Lex Wellness. Shit, I thought you were talking about.
Yeah, it was a
That was
It was
the
a
plug.
plug.
It was
that
a
was the
plug.
plug.
Thanks. You set me up and I knock them down.
So remind us
Yes,
again,
sir.
what was the name of that place?
Oh, Lex Wellness Kentucky.
Oh my
Let's
god!
wellness.
Yeah.
All online.
And they have gummies?
LexWellnessKY.com.
I have trouble sleeping, and marijuana helps me sleep. Do they have something for that?
They do.
D-Lo, does he have a card?
I
Yes, he does have a
do.
card.
As a matter of
Do you have his
fact.
card, D-Lo?
And you can even use the code Omega Green for 20% off.
Come on.
Whoa.
Hey, because I will tell you the cartridge, it's pretty good.
Is it?
I think this one is a sativa,
Yeah.
Okay.
so
Okay.
Yeah.
it does keep you kind of aware. You know, it
Mhm.
doesn't really like give you that body buzz of like
This guy over
I'ma
slurring
go
his
sleep.
language.
Right.
but
I think
it's
that's the
pretty good.
bourbon.
That is the bourbon.
That is
Oh
the
god.
bourbon.
So, all right. But yeah, no, but yeah, it was more of an outdated term that I was like,
Oh yeah, she dusted that shit off.
yeah.
Yes,
So,
sir.
Like, oh,
'Cause-
we're going to Jamaica.
like even nowadays, like hearing a word like a discounted
Oh,
price,
yeah.
it was kind of like, really, like, you know what I mean? So
But I'd say I bet they probably got some fucking fire.
yeah.
But I think we done went all the way left. Back to your topic.
But yeah,
Yeah.
but it,
Yeah.
well, it kind of was coming back around
Imposter
my topic.
syndrome? Is that what it was?
What? No. Are you trying to say something? If you got something to say, just say it. But yes, full circle in Jamaica, like they grow organic kind of do their thing. They got land race strains that pretty much are like indigenous strains to the island, shit like that.
Yeah.
And in that respect, that's the kind of shit where I'm like, they haven't done away with it on, for lack of a better term, kind of a scientific level. And like we've bred all these other cannabinoids out of it to only have THC. So I would think if you're going to get any good shit that has a good balance of cannabinoids, it would be a place like Jamaica. But having not been there personally, I could not tell you for sure. If anybody wants to send all of us to Jamaica and be an angel investor, that would be dope.
Right.
Right.
Right
So
by the
on that note, like where
Shiznik.
Kentucky was more, the soil was the best soil for it. Has it gone that direction, or has it gone more organic?
Oh, we'll see. Well, what I'm referring to is basically kind of like the selective breeding of the thing, the industry largesse.
Right.
From a competitive nature, they've selectively bred stuff to where the THC is dominant and everything else is almost, it's negligible or non-existent.
Right.
And that's a problem. So like where we're at, we're like anything that is going on in the state, majority of strains nowadays, I'm sure that you still can get some, but you have to go look for the information, find, who has it. Cause could be wrong. I don't think most places like go there, you get it, and it's on the label, mostly THC.
Yeah, because I remember at one point, like most of the Cannabis Cup winners was from Kentucky.
I don't remember that. But I'm like where we're at right now. I'm just saying like it's a selective breeding issue.
Yeah.
So like all the strains that we're going to be bringing in, that stuff doesn't have anything to do with like the soil or the way in which it's physically grown.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just talking about genetics over time. You digs?
Yeah.
And what they've done to it. Look at how they massacred my boy. Look at what they've done to it. But still, I mean, shit nowadays is fire too, but it is definitely different from how it once was. And I don't say that in a way to where I want to stay in the past. I'm just saying from a perspective of, there's issues that we have to deal with now, like you said about going to the emergency room because you freaked out or whatever, and other people who are heavy cannabis users over time have developed things like what's called cannabis hyperemesis syndrome. They have like rounds of like insane vomiting and they, abdominal issues. Like they have a whole bunch of shit going on, and that's real stuff. Some people doubt that it even exists, but it's legit. It's just one of the symptoms of what I'm talking about, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because some people, good or bad, aren't built for that shit.
Yeah.
Which is why, it's for some people and it's not for others.
I'm telling you, because I'm not going to hold y'all. Like, I was smoking the other day, right? And I was just chilling on the couch.
Right.
And then, like, my sister calls me Samson sometimes. And I call her Sheila. So I was sitting on the couch and she had called me and I was like, hello. And she's like, Samson, it's Sheila. Mama fell. And I was like, did you smoke? I was like, did you smoke slip? Nah, I'm just playing. That story's a whole lie.
Yeah.
No, but
Shout out to Dave Chappelle.
that's wild. But when you say that bringing in strands, is this not like homegrown stuff? This is stuff that's coming from other places?
As far as what's going on inside the state, it'll all be grown here, I think. Okay, there'll be places here that grow it, and you'll be able to get it through the dispensaries. But the dispensaries being separate from the places that grow it, I would think have a variety of different farms, suppliers that they work with, which will pretty much determine your offerings. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'd like to think that it's all completely local stuff, but a lot of these people are out-of-staters and whatnot that own these dispensaries, I believe. So that being the case, I can't see why they wouldn't take advantage of their ability to source flower from their native places. Or what have you. So, what do you think, Cha-Cha? What's your experience been over the years, you digs?
So, in my experiences, I've never experienced anxiety or what was the other one? What did Javi say? He said he experienced anxiety and something.
Panic attacks.
Yeah, I've never dealt with that in my past experiences. As a teen,
Yeah, but you never got to the point you're saying like to where like you were just overwhelmed.
No, never
Yeah.
that. Now, of course, there's been, but at the same time, I was doing both drinking and
Gotcha.
so it was. I had to make a choice. I chose alcohol, but I've indulged a bit here and there. I don't want to get into why and when because I'll be giving too much away when I'm trying to get to work.
I got you.
Right.
I'm trying to be a good host. But anyway,
Heard.
now I did have a friend. This was years ago, and we worked together, and I can't remember. We had a coworker that gave. I may have bought some off. This was a while ago. This was in the 90s, years ago, and so we were. We were going to the club. I think it was a Friday. And me and my partner we reconnect and we smoke and he's like, "Hey man, pull over, man."
Right.
He starts having this panic attack, like his chest is getting tight and
Yeah.
I'm like, "What do you need to do, man?" He starts hyperventilating and he's like, "Hey man, if I die, man." You get dude, I ain't gonna say his name. I remember his name, but I ain't gonna put him on blast. But he was wanting me to get avenge me, it was dad. So I didn't know what to do. I was like, here, man. I was trying to talk him down out of that tree. It was. So I know, I've seen people go through that, but not me. I've just been like, just my equilibrium off balance. I'm more of an off balance kind of guy.
Yeah, and see that was my experience. Like, I mean, even Omega knows,
Right.
From where we was in high school. Probably
it was a whole different game.
Yeah, and probably until about the time that I experienced it, like it wasn't like an overtime thing. It just all of a sudden it just snapped.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like, I went to smoke, and I didn't think I was gonna die. I wasn't that dramatic about it, but it was like I know what anxiety and panic attack feels like.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like as soon as I started sweating, I was like, "What's happening?" Like I never, cause like marijuana and cannabis, it was like my comfort zone.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like at that time it kind of freaked me out because like I was like, damn, like what's going on? Like, I never felt like this before.
And I'm just now actually learning, like the sativa versus indica versus hybrid.
Yeah.
I'm just learning exactly what I always had an idea, but it was nothing that stuck with me.
Gotcha.
Like I didn't know if I say let's just say I say I want to smoke, but I don't want to be too high. I don't want to be too low. I didn't know it was hybrid. I didn't know that's what it was, and then I didn't know that. I knew what indica was, but I didn't know what sativa was. I had never heard that word.
Yeah.
But I went with the group, the Rose Gang group that I was telling you about, that I used to be a part. That what I'm still a part of. We just ain't
Shout
no
out
word,
Rose Gang.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Chico
Rose
and the
Gang.
crew. We're gonna get you on here one day, Chico and the crew. But we actually was trying to do a gig in Detroit. We had got booked for a show, and so we went to a dispensary there, and it was pretty dope. They set you in, you sign up, they put you in the lobby, and you get buzzed. You don't get buzzed in the door, buzzes, and you get a representative comes out, and they give you a tour, and they with you the whole time. Any questions that you have, they can answer, and that's how I learned about it. And then like you could ask them, they had everything, pens, well, I've tried this and I've tried, but my personal preferences is, they were connoisseurs. He was basically a connoisseur. And so I'm just now really understanding what I like and how to articulate it. Yeah,
exactly.
So
we are the connoisseurs.
right.
Right.
Yeah. So I wouldn't, if let's just say in the past, if I was smoking or whatever, and I was like jittery and hyper, I wouldn't know what that was. I was just, I'm just thinking I'm tripping, or if I'm mellow, I'm like, man, I done smoked too much. But I didn't understand that there could be a difference in how you could become, emotionally and mentally off of certain types of cannabis. I knew, but I didn't.
Well,
it was never really explained to me.
Honestly, that I can agree with that because Omega actually was the one that taught me more about the different the different strands.
Right.
When I was growing up, like I've seen the evolution from the 90s to now.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just like when it, growing up, when you first started smoking, it was like, can I get a whatever bag? And it was whatever that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just weed.
Yeah. And
like
then
red hair, sass, and the
like,
seeds
oh
was
my God.
bad.
it was like when I got in high school is
Too
when
much
it
shake.
started.
The bricks.
Yeah, but it was like when I got in high school was more the differential between regular weed, the regular cannabis, and
What
loud.
they then called hydro.
Yeah, loud.
Bring
Yeah.
it back.
And so it wasn't till I think we was about getting ready to get out of high school that it was more different.
It
Different
started
to
changing
it started going
a
to
lot.
like sativa, indica, and then hybrids. Actually, I don't even think hybrids came in the picture at that point.
It's like it's really all about kind of like the arc of how things have happened. Because technically, the majority of shit nowadays, even the stuff like that they say is like pure indica, pure sativa, it's questionable whether it actually is.
Right.
Because everything that all those modern strains are built off of were hybrids in of themselves. So
Yeah.
it's like everything's got a little bit of something else
Yeah.
in it. So they're all kind of technically hybrids,
Yeah.
unless you can actually find people that like have lines on some of the original strains that have been grown for like however many years, like the original.
I will say at one point in time, we did get original strand of blueberry yum yum.
Right.
That was amazing. I'm not gonna lie, like it.
You talking
like,
about the Amsterdam shit?
Yeah,
I was there for that.
Yeah. Like blueberry, and then I can't remember the one strain that we got that was incredible. But like at that point in time,
The super silver haze.
yeah, like that, like stuff like that. You
all over my head. That's all over my head.
like you could like there wasn't no words on like the potency of that brand, like or that strand. It was just like it.
Yeah, that shit was fire, bro.
There was no words. Like I said, when you was up in Kroger's trying just like no cares in the world, just getting munchy food.
Shopping all baked. What did I come in here for again?
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I need to get a buggy. Yeah. I just came here to get a loaf of bread so I can eat up all this bologna at home.
Right.
With pizza, chips,
Exactly.
and everything.
Exactly.
Pizza in the oven,
Yeah.
Would you say the concentration is because I mean you could probably still get some, I mean, depending on your tolerance level, some what you would consider a bad, buy or with a bad purchase. But would you say even with the bad purchase that the concentration is higher, even for compared to growing up with when we were growing up?
I would think so, yes. But it's the same thing. If you got like a bad buy, it would just be the quality of it would be
Right.
poor. Like
Right.
the potency might be there,
Yeah.
but it might smell and taste like shit,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
or have none.
Yeah.
That's why you've seen the rise of these things like the fucking the terp sprayed bullshits or
Oh,
whatever.
yeah.
Like, 'cause you can get the terpenes, the things that are responsible for like smell and taste.
Oh,
Like they
yeah.
exist in everything, like blueberries and all kinds of
Right,
shit. But you
right.
can get that on its own, and then people just basically like spray down a bunch of bullshit to make it smell or taste like something.
Right,
And there's
right.
actually a following of people who believe that the sprayed shit is superior. But I'll not go there.
Yeah. Ain't no way.
Yeah.
Ain't no
Yeah,
way.
exactly. But anyway, that's my opinion on the subject. I honestly feel like if we're going to be kind of doing stuff, I think the more prevalent thing to lead with, especially if we are going to do selective breeding, is to do things, strains that are inclusive with a mind to the entourage effect.
Okay.
Most definitely. But again, that's just me. What do you think? Let us know. Like, share, subscribe, all that bullshit. We'll make it green here with
The green room.
bro.
Who are you?
You. Who are you?
D-Lo.
Cha-Cha's always in the building. Yeah.
Yeah, and Javi as well. But thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again next week.
Peace.
Later.
Deuces.